the throne. I'ma testify to let you know this ain't no show, this ain't no joke. Your spirit that came and made me whole. But when you got three, sing with me. Yeah.
All right, we are live and Kingdom Minded Podcast has begun. I'm your host, Shane Blackledge, pastor of Cultivate Church, also the founder of Kingdom Minded Ministries, and You Are Not Forgotten Incorporated. I'm excited today because the guest that we have today is a personal friend of mine. I've known him for decades now, and it's just amazing. I'm so excited. Me and Chris go way back. He's been a friend of the family. He's been literally like family for a long, long time. And so I'm excited for the podcast. I'm excited that he gets to share his testimony. He can share what he's been through, where he's gotten, and what God's having him do now. And it's truly remarkable to see him. It seems like every time I'm peeping him out, he's either on the news or being interviewed by somebody, or he's doing video production, or he's creating art or murals or changing things in the town or digging stuff up in the river. It's it's amazing to see all the things that he's doing because his life is filled with purpose, man. And there was a point in his life where it wasn't filled with purpose and he had no purpose. But God, exactly. But God.
Exactly.
God changes things around. He takes the bad things and he somehow in some way turns the bad into good. And really it's a shift of our perspective and how we see and perceive the bad things that happen to us and these life lessons that we can learn through the trials, through the tribulations that we go through. You know, we go through these storms, you know, but we survive them and we move on. And they grow us, they make us tougher, they make us stronger. And so today, this podcast is going to be about Chris Anderson. So thank you, Chris, for coming on today. He reigns and lives in Muscatine, Iowa, but we grew up and knew each other in Waterloo, and he is home, but he's from Waverly. So anyways, I'm going to let you share about your life, and I'll just sit here and I just get to enjoy listening to my dear friend talk tonight. So thank you, Chris.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege to be here. And thank you, everybody who's listening and watching out there. And I hope that you have a good time listening to me talk about my life. So, yeah, I was born in Waterloo.
Digital audio.
I went to schools there until about, what was it, elementary school at Irving. And then my family moved way out into the country of Shell Rock, Iowa. And then, let me turn this down a little bit. And then from there, I went to Waverly Shell Rock High School, where I became a juvenile delinquent, I guess you could say, and got into trouble at the age of 15. I got sent to a military boot camp for juvenile delinquents, Woodward Academy. It's by Des Moines, Iowa. And back then it was pretty thorough. Anyways, after graduating that, I went out for cross country and did other things, but eventually fell back into the bad lifestyle, which led me to get incarcerated at the age of 19, 20. And I went to prison in Fort Dodge, where you were just saying something about feeling hopeless. And it made me think about that moment when I was like, God, please help me. You know, I'm like, not even knowing God, but I'm calling out to him, you know? And then how I kind of didn't think he was real for a while after I got incarcerated because, you know, he didn't help me, I thought. And then I found myself in solitary confinement, and I was reading this Bible over and over and exercising and writing. And I had an experience with him, and it stuck with me, and it didn't quite register until later, but yeah. After that, my life changed. because I had felt his presence in it.
Mm.
Anyways, and that was on my own. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I was going crazy, but I wasn't. Long story short is, I got released. I met a beautiful woman that lives in Muscatine. We have a child. She's now 16. Her name's Kiera. I've been here for about 20 years. I now have a almost 3-year-old girl named Angel. And that leads us to where we're at, kind of, with the current story of what I wanted to talk about tonight. So basically, it comes down to Pearl. And Muscatine is known as Pearl City. Okay. And a lot of people don't know about this story. It's really cool. So, first of all, I don't know if you know what a pearl is, but an actual pearl, like what's inside a clamshell that, people find and make necklaces out of and stuff or whatever. All that actually is a grain of sand that got misplaced and is inside that clamshell, irritating the clamshell. And the clam doesn't know what to do, so it starts to coat it with pearl. And over time, it just becomes bigger and bigger, like an onion. Okay, now think about that. Okay. And a small, irritating grain of sand. Haven't we all felt like that? Just out of place. Nobody notices you. Okay, so about in 2013, I found myself painting this mural on the back wall of the Muscatine History and Industry Center. I wonder if I can just do it like this because that's bugging me. Can you hear me still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to finish up with this and then we'll talk some more. I was painting this mural and learning about the history of Muscatine, Pearl City, as it's known. And I learned that in the early 1900s, 2/3 of the world's pearl button supply was what came from Muscatine, Iowa by itself. All the rivers and towns around Muscatine shipped their button blanks to Muscatine to finish them and then ship them around the world. I learned that pearl buttons are only worn by the elite and the high society people because they're very valuable and it's like a status symbol. And I learned so many historical things and it just intrigued me. And I'm like, why isn't anybody really paying attention to this more? Because it's so cool. It's just like, just the story itself is just cool. And anyway, about 15 years ago, I was on the riverbank and I found a couple shells on the river. I don't know if you guys ever seen something like this before, but it's just a clamshell with holes in it. This is where the button blanks were cut out from in the early 1900s. And back then, they would take these shells and just throw them in the trash because all they wanted was the pearl buttons. And so I'm looking at these, and I'm like, dang, these are really cool. And I ended up putting a couple together. And if you can imagine, here's a trunk of one. Here's a driftwood, a rock, and then a clamshell. Okay, real simple. But when I would put these items down at the museum, they would sell quickly and for quite a bit of money. And I was like, wow, that's cool. So over time, I started to learn about where to dig these up more and where to find the ones that are in better condition so I could make better art out of them. And in the process, I discovered pearl buttons. So here I got a bin of these. Check these out.
Nice. Wow.
And I just put them back. So yeah, I spent quite a few years digging up the pearl buttons then and cleaning them, sorting them, and storing them. And this is all while I wasn't in that good of shape. I had fallen back into drugs and alcohol for a bit. That led me up till about 2016 or 17 when I started to realize that as good as my art was, I would never be able to sell it for any amount of money because I myself did not look like art. I had no story. I was trash. You know, I was on drugs and everything. You know, and people didn't want to take me seriously. They didn't hear me. They didn't want to connect with my story. And I could see it very clearly. And I don't blame them, because I didn't even want to connect with my story. It's a bad thing to look at. Being homeless, digging in the ground, trying to find some pearl to make some art, to make some money, to feed yourself, and to buy whatever. Pretty hopeless. Now, that was about 15 years ago, like I was saying, and in 2018 was the last time that I used drugs and, you know, alcohol, basically. Like, I think I didn't count, but it's been a good 5 years since I've drank. But anyway, yeah.
That's incredible, man. By the way, bravo, dude.
Thank you.
That's amazing. By the way,
it's no sweat.
For you
I love it.
to say that you haven't done something for 5 years, that's a miracle.
Oh yeah,
that's a miracle. Because
it's
Chris
a walking
was
miracle.
the guy that had the
day.
drugs. Chris was the guy that if you needed something, you called Chris.
I would know how to party every time.
Yes, yeah, and he was a hard partier for days and nights, and
rave,
days
baby,
and nights. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Now let's focus up here. All right, here we go. I'm almost there. This is the good part, and this is the part I hope everyone will connect with, because this is what it's all about.
That's right.
So, and I can hear you still, but I think this is working when I can just talk like this, because it's like not echoing in my ear.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Actually, I can do it like this. This is good right there.
Yep.
All right, so I'm digging up spent shells. I'm finding pearl buttons. I have the materials to make the money or whatever to do the. It wasn't for me. It was really never about making money either. Like I said, it was more about getting that history out of the ground and into the up above the dirt again. You know what I mean? I think it was more about the artistic challenge of that, and making some money. You know, you got to survive. You know. But anyway, so yeah, I set off to try to do that. You know, and I worked with the History and Industry Center. We started a gift shop. The next thing you know, one thing leads to another. At this point in time, I have at least 5 or 6. I mean, I have the Merrill Hotel, which is a 5-star hotel that signed with me for Pearl. I have the Muscatine History and Industry Center that sells my Pearl. They display my story and have my murals. I have the Pearl Plaza, where I own in the lobby. I have a huge jewelry cabinet full of pearl and different artifacts and things that people can see. You know, and then I have an additional probably at least 10 murals up and down 2nd Street that the public can walk up and down and look at and experience history, because each one speaks about, you know, the lumber industry or the pearl button history or Mark Twain or, you know, something with river related type subject matter, you know, and colorful and very fun, and you know, so let's see. Recently, well, I shouldn't say recently, in the last 5 years, I was hired as a production specialist due to my work as a mural artist. I was interviewed by the mayor, and after the interview, the fellow that was filming us asked me if I had ever considered doing television. And I was like, no, like, you're kidding me? Like, obviously you don't know me. I thought to myself, because there's no way you'd want to hire me. Right? And he's like, well, how about tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, meet me at Hy-Vee? And I'm like,
what?
You know, I'm like, okay. I told him, yep. But I was thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't have a vehicle. I live in the hood. What the hell, you know? But anyway, next thing you know, I'm there every morning at Hy-Vee at 7 a.m. setting up for this talk show locally that, I had met the host, Tony Tone. Uh, I learned the job really good to the point to where I was hired by another company and to do virtually the same show, but for more money. And then so on and so forth. And now it's gotten to the point where we have a studio in the Pearl Plaza, and it's just one room where anyone can come and they can get interviewed, and I can display my artwork, and I am so blessed.
Mm.
I have everything I've ever wanted. I can't even think of one thing that I wanted. So, and that's a good feeling, because when you're coming from nothing, it don't take much to make you feel all right. And then once you feel all right, I think it's just a matter of making sure you stay there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like the town around me is kind of now just waking up to this whole Pearl thing. This last week, I was telling you about it, but I uncovered many artifacts from a U.S. soldier. Here's his belt buckle. This soldier was right alongside the Pearl that I used for artwork. And all of his belongings, like his gun and his pocket knife and his pickaxe, his axe, Pearl buttons from his uniform. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And this is after 15 years of being in the dirt, getting laughed at, along the way. Look at that guy, The whole time I'm worried I'm going to lose my job, because once they find out that I'm like a convicted felon and like been to prison, there's no way they're going to keep me. I still kind of like, but dude, now we're on a level to where, I'm too valuable now. I feel like, they kind of have to pay me or keep me going at this point, because, I mean, we still do the shows and everything. It's not like I'm not providing the content. So
yeah,
I'm still doing my job.
Right.
Yeah. This is my first employer, by the way. This guy.
Nice.
That's it from that. Yeah, I'm still grateful for this guy and everybody else along the way, regardless if they like me or not. I love all of y'all, and I love everybody.
Nice.
I mean it.
That's what's up.
And even the haters. Let's talk about the haters real quick. Can I just throw this out there? Because I have a great theory. All right. Instead of being like dismayed when you have someone that doesn't like you or maybe says that your stuff's not good, instead of feeling like, well, I wish you liked it, I think a better way to approach that would be to let it empower you. And to like fully embrace it, almost like they're giving you a hug, like Reverse Day or something, a little bit. Okay, because I've done that, and the reason why I say I recommend for anybody to do that is because when you do that, all of a sudden your suffering becomes a benefit. And I've learned a trick over the years. One thing is like, and we're all going to suffer, but how you suffer is all about it. Like suffering well, or are you just miserable? And that's about it. I think I covered all my bases. Soon Pearl City will come up or whatever, and everybody will come to Pearl City, and that's what it'll be, just like it should be. And I didn't do that. I feel like the community does that as a whole. You know what I mean? Once they all realize that right underneath them are these, like all over the ground, So they just don't realize it yet.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So what you got for me?
That's awesome. That's good, man. I'm glad that you have something that keeps you focused, something that keeps you busy. And what I want to talk about is purpose, because we go through life and sometimes we repeat patterns of behavior, and we find ourselves incarcerated, and then we get out, we try to do things, and we find our way back again. And I want to talk about that because, for me, I'm living out my purpose now, but it took a long time for me to figure out for me what was my purpose. Like for you, it's different. And for me, it's different. For my sister, it's different. For my brother, it's different. Hey, everybody has their own purpose in life. And it wasn't until I gave control over to God that's when I found my purpose. Because when I had control of my life, I chose to do bad things. I was a drug dealer. I was a partier. We went to many raves together. We hung out in the drug scenes. We hit the streets, and all these different things. And my lifestyle reflected my will, and I had to pay the consequences for my actions. I'm the one that landed myself in prison. It's not anybody else's fault of their own. I'm the one that got myself on drugs to the point where I was homeless and nowhere to go, and asking if I can sleep on, a buddy's couch, hey, can I eat dinner at your house tonight? Because I don't have any money. I'm so broke, I don't even have food stamps, and I remember when I was I used to get so bad on the drugs, I didn't even have food stamps. I ain't had no place to go. Nobody wanted me at their house, and I had to go to the food bank. I legit had to go to the food bank and get food, and they would only let you go like once a month, and I had to kind of sparingly ration food bank food because that's all I had. That's how bad the drugs got for me. But anyways, I say this because my life had no purpose. You know what I'm saying? And Chris, he's an artist. He's a creator. He's a film producer now, television producer. And those are things that he's doing because that's what pays the bills. That's a part of his life and purpose. But really, a life of purpose is a life that we give over to the care of God. And we say, okay, God, I tried it my way and it didn't work. Now, there's a story in the Bible, and it's in chapter, let me see here if I can get it. It's in Luke chapter 15. and I want to read this story because, I just want to be mindful of what the Lord is telling me to read here. And I want to read this to you, and I want everybody to watch as we read this. So I am going to present and share my screen here. Okay. Can you see that? All right. I want to read this. This is Luke chapter 15, because here is a guy that had no purpose. None. All right. And it's a parable of the prodigal son. And he had no purpose until the very end. And if you pay attention, you're going to find your purpose. So you might be watching this, you might be listening to this, and you're wondering, what is my purpose in life? What is my specific purpose? What am I here for? What's the point? Well, in the parable of the prodigal son, it says here in Luke 15:11, and there was a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Now, for a little context in this story, for a Jewish boy to ask his father for his inheritance, you're basically asking him to die because you didn't get your inheritance until then. And so this was a real blow to his father to ask for his property, to ask for his inheritance. And it says in verse 13, not many days later, the young son gathered all he had. He took everything and he took a journey into a far country. So he left. He left the country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. Wow. Can you identify with reckless living, Chris?
Yeah.
Did we? Was there a moment in time where you lived a kind of a reckless lifestyle? I can say that for me, okay? And it says here in verse 14, and when he had spent everything, okay? When he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in the country and he began to be in need. Now, Chris, can you identify with having spent everything? Do you remember a time in your life where you were like broke? Like you were so broke you didn't have any money in the bank, you didn't have any money in the pocket, and like you were saying, you were trying to you were homeless, trying to find a pearl to sell at the store so that you could get something to eat. That's
basically
broke, right? That's real,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so I'm identifying right now with this person in this story. It says here, and when he spent everything, a severe famine arose in the country and he began to be in need. And so he went and hired himself out to be one of the citizens of that country and sent him into his fields to feed pigs. Another historical aspect of this is Jews, they don't eat pigs, they don't eat pork. They're filthy, it's swine. And so for him to work amongst the pigs, amongst an animal that he would never, ever eat, wow. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. Wow. The pigs eat slop. The pigs eat dirt. Like the pigs just walk around in their mess and end up eating that. It's really gross. In verse 17, but when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? He's talking about his father's servants. And here he is, his father's son, and he is going to perish and die because he has nothing. And he came to himself. Do you ever have that moment in life, Chris, where you came to yourself and you realize, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Well, it happened for me in jail. It happened for me in prison. I came to my senses and like, why am I doing this? Why am I in prison now for the 5th time? Why am I in this drug rehab for the 3rd time? You know, and he had this coming to himself moment. Verse 18, I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So now he's gonna, he comes to himself and says, you know what? I'm gonna return back to my father, and I'm gonna tell him I'm not worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your slaves. Just treat me like one of your servants. And he arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. So he had left to a faraway country, and the father sees him far away. It says he arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. So the father was looking for him. He was looking for him. He was looking for his son, waiting for his return. And he felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe. Bring it on him and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. So he's basically saying, man, go get these tomahawk steaks, go get these ribeyes and porterhouses, because we are going to celebrate. We are going to party because my son has returned. And 24 says, for this my son was dead and is alive again. Can you identify with that in a moment in your life where you were spiritually dead?
Yes.
You had no purpose.
I literally couldn't. I lost my dad for a while. He wouldn't talk to me over my drug use and stuff.
Right. We were spiritually dead. And this is what the Father is saying. For my son was dead, but is alive again. He was lost, but now he is found. And they began to celebrate. They celebrated him being alive again. How amazing is that? Verse 25, and now his older son was in the field, and he came and drew near to the house. He heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has received him back safe and sound. But he was angry and refused to go. His father came out and threatened him or entreated him, but he answered him, his father, saying, look, these many years I've served you, and I've never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to his son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this your brother was dead, and he is alive. He was lost, and he is found. There's so much in that. You know, his brother was kind of being a hater. A little bit ago, you talked about your haters, right? You talked about people that are going to hate you for your success, hate you for coming back. There's going to be people that hate you for bouncing back from death to life. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? I lost friends when I gave my life to Christ and started living for him. I had people delete me and, you know, disengage from me on social media and because of the life that I'm living, and I'm okay.
You're a cop.
Because, hey, I'm celebrating now. You know what I'm saying? I'm partying now. I'm with the Father, and I'm celebrating. I have 17 years clean from meth. Amen.
Amen.
And Chris, you have 5+ years, right?
It'll be 7 years.
I think I have like
April
7
1st.
years, no alcohol. 7 or 8 years, something like that. It's been a while of no drinking. No alcohol. I don't do any drugs or alcohol at all. And I'm celebrating. And it's amazing. And I love my life. And you know what? I was lost, but now I'm found. And the reason why I shared this story is because this guy found his purpose. The guy found his purpose in going back to the Father, because your purpose is in going back to the Father. Your purpose is tied to going back to God. And so I don't know if you fell off or you've backslid or you've squandered it all or you've made some poor choices and kind of lost your way, but now you've been found. I want to encourage you to celebrate, because the Father loves you. He calls you son. He calls you daughter. You're now found. You're not lost. And he says, what's yours is mine. What's mine is yours. That's how God always will be. That's what he said to the brother. He said, you've been with me this whole time. What's mine is yours. Everything of mine is yours. Isn't that amazing that God will share his wealth, that God will share everything he has once we realize it's all his anyways? The money, the job, the car, the house, everything that you have, it's all God's anyways. When you realize that God's in control and we have a purpose to live, and it's through worshiping and following God. So I wanted to share that with you guys, man. Luke chapter 15. It's amazing.
Very good.
Yes. Right on, Chris. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you doing what you do. I definitely want to make sure that on the end of this, that the guys are going to be watching, everybody that's watching this on Edovo, specifically, you'll be able to see some of his art, some of his pearls on display in the museums, and to see what he's doing. He has a life of purpose now. He's an artist. He took
that's really why I'm doing it, by the way. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
Because I just want to imagine being in there and watching me right now. I want you to know you're so blessed.
Yeah. Yeah. And he took something that everybody laughed at him about. And he took something from the dirt, from the mud, from the muck, and washed it And it's so symbolic of God. Like
I
what you're
know.
doing with the pearls, it's so symbolic of like God's hands. He takes us when we're dirty and filthy and we're sinners, and he washes us up, and then he repurposes us. And then he puts us in a display case and say, look at my children. Look at my child. Look at how beautiful he is. And what's so amazing is now the very thing that was discarded as trash and thrown away however many years ago. How long ago did they throw these things away?
Oh, 100 years ago.
100 years ago. 100 years this has been forgotten. Long and forgotten. But just guess what, man? God has not forgotten you. God has not forgotten you at all. You are not forgotten. And what other people have discarded you like trash, you're not trash. In God's eyes, you're everything. You're the apple of his eye. You're the pearl, just like that pearl of the clam. That is you. You are that shiny, shiny pearl, man.
You nailed it. You nailed it.
All right, man. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast.
One last thing.
I appreciate you sharing your story, Chris. I really do.
I got one more thing. I got to plug this party that I'm throwing December 6th. Me and my boss, excuse me, Pearl City Media. It's not a rave party. So here we go. It's called Jingle and Mingle.
Yeah.
Okay. We got a big list of events. We got a lot of nice sponsors here.
Nice.
Okay. One last thing. When you show up down there on December 6th, you will meet me. So I'll see you there.
All right. Peace. Hey, man, thank you. God bless.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching
God bless.
Kingdom Minded Podcast. Share this out, y'all. God bless.